of course we can say bad words, and that's how we're gonna start the show off with just mentioning it. There might be some bad words. So welcome all to another episode of the Shutter Saga Podcast. I'm your host Marvin Blue. With me every episode is always another artist that is telling their story, getting in the shenanigans with yours truly. But before we get started, we got a couple sponsors because we are an official podcast and they love us to death. But we got some awesome sponsors that want to kick in and help out with the project of keeping this show running and paying the bills. So first and foremost, as always, Cheetah Stands. They make the most awesome stands. If you are a mobile photographer, if you're on the go and you need stands that are going to be durable, run with you. In the studio, out the studio, Cheetah Stands is the way to go. Go to cheetahstands.com, use promo code. I should have had this up and I messed up, but it's all good. Use the promo code podcast and get 10% off of your purchases on Cheetah Stands. So again, cheetahstand.com, use your promo code podcast for 10% off all stands, all the products that they offer. We're also sponsored by ProPrints. ProPrints makes the most amazing canvases known out there. I've been using them for 10 plus years. They also offer other products such as acrylics, just everything. They are a print company and they have been riding hard for me since day one. And I'm going to continue riding hard for them. They make, again, handcrafted luxury albums, canvases, acrylics, you name it. If you're into sales, if you're into presenting your clients with amazing products that are going to make you stand above the competition, this is the way to go. Go to proprints.com, check out what they have. Also, if you do comment on this episode that I have with my guest on an Instagram page, we will possibly shoot you a promo code for a free sample, maybe a free canvas. We'll see. Depends on how many reach out there, but let's get at least 5 people to comment on the episode, and I will do what I can to hook you up, okay? So go to proprints.com, and again, thank you to our sponsors for keeping the show up and running and allowing us to have these weekly shenanigans. My guest this week, I have a long list of things that I could say about this guy, but I'm just going to cut to the nitty-gritty. He is one of our nation's finest, and by nation's finest, I mean he is the second finest because he was an Army. He was actually a Marine. So it is a little bit of a conflict of interest, but because the people wanted me to bring out representation from our military community, and I'm a man of the people, I thought I'd bring someone out. And a lot of my Army buddies were off, busy, bailing Marines out of their shenanigans. So I went ahead and just figured I'd get one of the Marines to come out there, but he's had an illustrious career in the Marine Corps, and now he's full-time at it with photography. We met years ago. He is a photographer, author, brand ambassador, family man, great friend, great guy all around. He is just a lighting gem. The guy knows light better than most people that I know. But with me this week is Rey Benasfre. Am I saying the last name correctly? Or am I just exaggerating? That's what I thought. Rey, man, welcome to the show. Wait, I got some echo here.
Marvin.
I think I'm getting some feedback here. Say
something.
No
worries.
Okay. Yep. Now, Rey, man, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming out, man. Thanks for making time for us today. You are coming to us from San Diego, right?
Yep, San Diego, California.
Nice. We jealous of the weather there.
Oh, it's awesome, man.
So now you're originally from California, right?
Yeah, I grew up in in Northern California in the Bay Area.
Okay.
And then I got stationed here when I was 18, and when I joined the Marines, best fighting force on the planet, by the way.
Allegedly.
I got stationed here as my first duty station, and just been kind of back and forth to San Diego ever since. Moving around the country, but coming back to San Diego, and I just always felt like it was my home. So now I'm here, settled down, retired Marine, and just loving the weather here.
So was it 20 years? Did you get the full 20 out of you? And
full 20. Yeah, I didn't want to do a year over that. I was
living the dream. You get the 20 years, and now you just sit back, and now you get to be the grizzled young veteran, or it was the grizzled old veterans now. Back in our day, boot.
Yep. I actually, like every day I go to the gym on base just so I can hang out with all the other old retired guys and work out.
I still got it. Nice.
Oh, so yeah, it's pretty much what I do now.
Now, so and we'll get into your photography career in a moment, but like being in the Marines, I know notoriously Marines get the opportunity to travel a lot. So where have been some of the awesome places that you got to see in your time of service?
Ooh, some amazing places. Iraq. course,
Of
amazing.
course, yeah.
Afghanistan's pretty good this time of the year. I've been
Yep.
there. Spent a whole year over there. I also got to go to some, some, lesser nice places like Hawaii and,
Yeah.
um, you know,
Overrated.
uh,
Yeah.
Okinawa, Japan. I was stationed there for 3 years. That was probably one of my favorite duty stations, to be honest. That's where my daughter was born. We miss it out there. Japan's super awesome. And then we also, were stationed in North Carolina, Jacksonville, North Carolina.
Okay.
Um, so it was very different for me, living in the country, but I actually kind of miss it being, now I miss that slow country life. It was kind of nice. Um,
Nice.
but other places, shoot, I mean, Europe and all over the world, pretty much. As far as deployments go, just the Middle East and
Yeah.
rim pack, pretty much.
Yeah, that's the trade off is you might see some awesome places, but you definitely might see a deployment here and there. It was that era. I was in around the same time,
Hmm.
probably in the beginning when you were in. I got out in '09, but like you,
Well, every once in a
I
while,
picked.
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was gonna transition, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say every once in a while they send me somewhere kind of cool, like Australia. That was another one I didn't mention, which is
Oh,
also one of
nice.
my
I have
favorites.
yet to go there. That's one place that's on my bucket list. So yeah, you definitely got me beat there.
Oh,
But
great place to be for a 20 to 21-year-old.
were you married at the time when you went there? Or?
Nope.
Oh, yes. Now you're really living the dream. You get to just be reckless and single. Wait and blow all your money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong. It was being in the service. That was when you first started or picking up the camera for the first time. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. I wish I can say like I started like in high school in the dark room, but I didn't. I was in Okinawa. If you would have told me like that I would be doing this as a career or even any good at it around that time, I probably would have laughed at you. Um, at the I think like most there, I know other people like this too, where they got a camera because they got kids. Like my daughter was born, so I'm like, okay, I need a nice camera to take pictures of her. My wife was the one that pushed to get this Nikon DSLR. Um, she wanted to buy it off of a coworker of mine, and I really did not want to spend $500 on a camera. So, but she happy wife, happy life. She made it happen, and then I bought the camera. She never used it, touched it once, and I would play with it, and I started to kind of like it a little bit. A couple of guys that I worked with, they got into photography too, and then we would talk about going out to shoot the sunrise or sunset or something together. Sure you can imagine like a bunch of like big buff marine dudes just standing around the office, and then like someone's coming, hey, what are you guys looking at? And we're sitting there looking at pictures of butterflies and flowers that we took on our phones, and that was like like that became a passion for us, and we were like super obsessed with it. um and it wasn't until like I we went on a trip, me and my family, to Vietnam, and we were there for like a month, and I brought the Nikon with me, and I finally, like, there was a photo walk I went on in Vietnam, and that's where I finally learned how to use like manual settings.
Oh,
Like
nice.
yeah, like people tried to explain it to me before, and I could not wrap my hand around, the exposure triangle, aperture, like just blew my mind. I didn't know what the heck that was, um and then suddenly it just like clicked for me while I was on this trip. And then I remember I took this picture of this old Vietnamese woman in this old village, Hanoi, and it was Hoi An. That was a village, and she just had all these like interesting like features and like the wrinkly skin, and then like and the background was perfect. It was bokeh out and everything, and I took that shot, and I was like obsessed, with portraits, and that's where I wanted to start taking pictures of people from that point on, um, and then transitioned to North Carolina after my next duty station. Um, that's where I actually started, thinking about doing photography as a profession, and that's when I joined a PPA group out there.
Okay.
They're the the professional imaging group of Eastern North Carolina. They called it PIGWING for short. It was a PPA chapter, and uh, a couple of the guys, and they were like, Ray, how old are you? And I was like, I think I was like 30 something at the time, and they're like, you're young, you should do weddings. I'm like, why? And they're like, that's where the money's at. And I'm like, okay. Um, Let me assist. So I started assisting on a few weddings and helping out, second shooting, and actually like really enjoyed it. I enjoyed like the creativity behind it, and working with people, and that's just kind of started. That was the direction I started going into from there.
Nice. So, real quick, just switch your camera over a little bit so that way it don't cut off your face anymore, if you can. Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yep. Yeah, I can see now.
I'm in my car right now.
Yes, he's
right.
doing a mobile podcast.
Yep.
That's called,
my mobile.
He's doing what most dads do. Is called we go in our car and we hide out. I mean, I'm surprised he doesn't have fast food, and he's like, that park in front of the house, eat your food real quick before you go in the house, and you're like that reset before you go in. But we love our families. But we love our families. But understand, this is parent level 10 stuff that we're talking here. So if you don't have kids, it's got nothing to do with us hating our kids. Yep. It's called being a dad. Okay.
It's called being a dad. They got a 9-year-old there with all her.
Exactly. Buying the big 75-inch TV that you're going to watch the football game on, but she's watching Descendants and you're watching it on your phone. Yeah. Your football game. So it's like, yes, that's the trade off of life.
Yeah, right now I got my 9-year-old girl in there with all her like neighborhood girlfriends. Like, I don't need to be in there, right?
Yeah, no. Yes. Some people call that a nightmare. We just call that a regular Tuesday for us. No. So, and I was gonna make a joke about you shooting an A for awesome, but being so when you got the bug and it hit you, what year was that around the time when all that started coming about?
Speaking of which,
there
goes one of them right there. Dad, what are you doing?
Yes.
I'm sorry. So, what was that question again, Martin?
I said, so what year was it when you like really started getting after the Vietnam trip and you're in North Carolina? When was it the start really hitting you? Like, man, I really want to give this a shot.
So I got a great story about this.
Okay.
So I get to North Carolina, and first I'm still just doing it as a hobby on my own. And that's where I really got into like Milky Way photography. So like like one thing, like if you guys know me at Shutter Fest, like I teach a lot about Milky Way photography and Milky Way portraits and stuff. So that's where I really like got into it, and that was all I was shooting for like a whole, probably like almost a year, just going out by myself. Nobody, like I didn't have any friends that were into photography over there. I just go out by myself into like the dark wilderness, and, probably wasn't safe, but and get pictures of the Milky Way. And that was just with my my crop sensor, Sony A6300. Just to me at the time, like I didn't feel like I could go like pro or, like when you're starting out as a crop sensor, you look at that full frame, it's just like that, like that, like that one, like that piece of gear that it just seems so unattainable at the time, right? When
it's your holy grail, you're like one day it'll be mine.
Yeah, and you're like, how am I going to pay like thousands of dollars for this, and with photography, and then you figure it out, then soon enough you start making all the money and getting all the gear. But like I was not making any money with photography, and then my wife was also at the point where like she's like, you're not spending any more money on this stuff, like this is a lot of money. I bought like a $200 lens, which $200 for me as a hobbyist was a lot. As a professional photographer, like I wouldn't use that or at a wedding or anything like that. So there was a company, they rent lenses, borrow lenses.
Mm-hmm.
They did this contest online where you had to submit it was whoever had the most creative video or photo of their kit, their camera gear. Whoever could take a picture of that or video and submit it would win a Sony A9. This is like 2017, like Sony A9 just came out. Sony's flagship camera was like $4,500. Like it was a beast at the time. It was like the best camera you can get. And I really wanted this camera. So I decided to do a video, and I went with a stop motion video. So like I used like little Legos so I got all my sons like little Lego characters, and so I made a little stop motion video with them moving, walking around, moving. So the whole idea of it was they were gonna go into my bag and pull all my gear out and just kind of lay it out like as a lay flat, and then and this is all like again stop motion, so I'm moving them like little by little and then taking a picture, on a tripod. And I was probably working on this for like maybe 5 or 6 hours a night for like a whole week. Um,
Nice. That's
it was really long, and it was a lot of, and I had to let people know not to like enter this specific area because I was filming there. And it was just like really just my dining room floor. And then when I was done with the video, like it looked really great, and but I was trying to be strategic about this too. I was like, I'm not gonna drop it just yet. I'm gonna wait until the last minute because if I do it now, people are gonna, someone's gonna try to one up it or copy me or
oh yeah,
something
they go
like that.
yeah, definitely. That's what we
So
do.
like I need to, let's make sure, wait till the last minute if someone, and see if someone else comes up with something like maybe I think might be better, then I can try to make it better. But so I waited till the last minute. There was a few people that entered in. I think like I remember Ben Shirk was one of them. He had like this really sick photo of him jump with all you've seen his work. He's really like good with Photoshop and everything. And I was like, I think this guy might beat me, but I dropped it, and like next day they called me, Barlin's called me and told me I had won. So then I won the Sony A9, and I was like, okay, I got a serious camera now. Like I gotta probably take this to the next level. And that's when I got with my buddies in the PPA group. I'm like, all right, you guys are professionals. You guys have done this as a career for most of them are old timers, and started out in the film days. And I just kind of, that's when I started picking their brain on like, how do I, how do I turn this into like a business, and they helped me out with a little bit of that, and then and I wanted to get into wedding photography. So I was like, okay, like I want to be a badass wedding photographer. Like, how do I take badass pictures? So I was looking on Instagram, and guess who I found on Instagram? Michael Anthony. And
Of course.
we all know Michael Anthony. I was like, oh, dude, this guy is sick. And he was a Sony shooter at the time. And so I was like, okay, how do I shoot like this guy? And then it just so happened he was hosting a workshop, his first ever workshop in Maryland. I think it was like Hagerstown. I can't remember the name. I don't want to
Yeah.
I don't want to butcher it, but it was in Maryland, which is where my wife is from. So like we planned a trip to go visit her folks, and in the meantime, I was going to go do this day workshop with Michael Anthony, and learn how to shoot, how to use off-camera flash, and all that stuff. And so I feel like that was also like a big turning point for me too. Was working with him and learning his process and everything. It didn't get me like to Michael Anthony's status. Like I'm not, I wasn't shooting him like him right away, but I got the concepts that he was, talking about.
Get the
Especially
foundation. Yeah.
the foundation, and one thing that I really took away from his classes, he was really big on the business aspect of
Yeah.
photography, and he would say, learn the business part first, and then like, everything else will follow there, over the craft. So, yeah, that's kind of like, yeah, when I, knew I wanted to start taking it serious. And then what really opened my eyes was going to Imaging USA for the first time. So met Michael Anthony. I never heard of Imaging USA. He was like, dude, I'm going to be speaking at Imaging USA next month. You should go check it out. I'm like, where's that? Nashville, Tennessee. I'm like, how the heck am I going to get over there? I can't afford all this stuff at the time. And my PPA group, there was a few people from there going. And then one of my friends, Joanna, she's been like she's been like such a help for me, and she's such a sweetheart. She was going to Imaging USA, and she offered to like let me stay with her and her husband like in their hotel room, so that way I can stay for free and learn everything from imaging, and get that opportunity to to meet people and all that. So definitely owe a lot to them for that opportunity. I went with them, and that's what really opened my eyes. I didn't realize that people are actually doing this as a career and making, 7 figures off of photography, just, and that's when I learned about like, IPS and, all that other stuff, and how we should be, running or what's a sustainable business model for photography. And that's where I ran into Sal. I met him for the first time, and he's the one who told me about Shutterfest. And then ended up at Shutterfest, and then just the rest is history from there. And it was just,
Oh
that's
yeah.
pretty much how it all started.
And it was Shutterfest that I met you at, but then it was also it was Shutterfest that got the initial introduction, but it was Magmod and Brandon there where I really got to know you. And it was because I remember the picture you took years ago. It was you were in your uniform. I think you did it as a self timer. It was like I don't want to say shutter
Yes.
drag, but the one where you were like on the pier and everything. And I
Oh
still
yeah.
like to I again that was an iconic image. And like I said, I'm like in this industry, I learned moments just were, like were those times when you saw something, just you stopped in your tracks, you're like, damn, this is why I love this. And it was like, I remember
Yeah.
that picture specifically. I was like, damn, because all I could think to myself was, I never got a picture like me in my uniform like that. And like, just you feel like it's a missed opportunity, but God, that was just a killer image. And I was like, the fact that you did it on a tripod, you did it by yourself. I was like, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
again, and then seeing Brandon bring your vision to life when he took y'all's family picture, I was like, okay, and then obviously,
Oh yeah,
the
that was fun.
connection of being in the service. I was like, oh, okay, we got common ground. And then after that, just when I
Yeah.
finally met you, it was like, oh, this guy's cool. We're gonna get along great. But it's like, yeah, I always think like the conference is what brings us all together and everything. And you were
Yeah.
learning from Michael when he was in his Sony. I always say Michael has different eras. I base Michael's eras not on by the years, but the camera he was using. So you got the Fuji era, you got the
Yeah.
Sony era, you got the Canon era. I don't know what he's
Um,
going to be at next month, but he's going to
I
be.
was, he was fucking around with Sony earlier this month.
Yeah, I know. And then he's back with Fuji. Just like, dude, can you pick one? Because we're trying to copy you, but you keep, we don't have disposable income to keep buying different brands. You're making it hard when you keep switching these brands. It was like because I'm shooting with Canon. People like, you gonna switch from Canon? I said, no, I don't have a time. I don't have a. There's no reason for me to upgrade any something. Like the only time I would ever switch brands is when I was doing my upgrades. And I said, there's no
Yeah.
reason to upgrade because I'm literally like for the next 5 years kind of set on how I do everything, photography and video wise. It's like, there's no point if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah.
That's how, yeah. I mean, because I almost did this. I almost made the switch to Canon just honestly because everybody else was doing it, and those new
Well,
RF
because
lenses are
the
pretty
R5,
sick.
yeah, the R5 is amazing. I mean, come on,
Yeah, it's an amazing camera. The
Yeah,
lenses are just like like that 20 to
absolutely.
70 like is just
Hmm.
I'm jealous
That
of
is
that 20 to 70. But
that
Sony's coming out with one. They just announced it. I'm pretty sure that
it
they're gonna have
took
one
them long
soon.
enough.
Yeah.
Now,
But
what's funny
yeah.
was when I was with Sony, I before I went back to Canon, I was shooting with Sony and I was doing video. Is when I really said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and commit and do video. The camera that I had at the time was the A7 III. It didn't do 4K 60 frames, and that was But the R5 that came out, and the R5 was doing 4K 60 frames, and I was like, okay, well, I'll play with the R5. And I was at a workshop, and I got to play with the R5 with the 50 mil, and I was like, okay, well, this is just these are just some sick images. And I was like, done. I was getting ready
Yeah.
to upgrade, so then I went ahead and made the move because I was in the upgrade phase. And then I got the R5. I was like, well, then I realized I just bought a camera that's gonna get me for the next 5 years, and that was in 2022 or 2021 ish time frame
Oh
when
wow.
that came up. So I've had that. Yeah, I've
It's
been
been
with
out for that long already,
yeah,
huh?
yeah, yeah. I think it was 2021 when it came out. I want to say,
Oh wow.
or
I still feel like it's so brand new. Like
trying to remember. Let me see. I base everything off of because I remember it was at the end of 2021 when I started making the switch over because I did the workshop, and it was also when we were breaking ground on our house on our current house right now. So that's how I remember it, because I remember sending pictures, and I was like, they're like, how you gonna buy a camera when you got to build a house? I'm like, I'm gonna do both.
yeah.
Because it was a year where I was like buying everything. I was getting a house built, bought new cameras. It was like, oh, you are balling, and COVID must have not stopped you. I was like, well, I mean, I literally had not a surplus, but I saved a bunch of money before COVID kicked off, and then I was like, we should be good as long as we don't, we could bring in the income by October. So the first month
Yeah.
was fun. The second month is when I got, was like, okay, I'm getting bored. The third
Yeah,
month I was like,
November.
okay, now I needed something to do, or I'm going to lose my shit here. And then I was back in shooting weddings like in May. But at that point, it was like, all right, we took all of March off. We took April off. May, I was like, I need to shoot a wedding or something. I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna go crazy, But yeah, but yeah, now the journey, that's just an awesome journey that you got to have. So what's been when you started really transitioning? When would you say I guess, because you were still in Marines during all this. So I guess when
Yeah.
did photography become a second job until you got to make it your career now?
I mean, it started probably like in 2018, I think. Or 2017 is when I think shot my first wedding solo.
Okay.
Because yeah, I said before that I was second shooting. I was and I was assisting. I was working with this guy in North Carolina. He's a Magmont ambassador as well, Chad Winstead. He's super talented photographer, great with Magmont. He's the one who showed me Magmont and how to use everything. And also just seeing his like process and stuff during weddings, and so I learned a lot from him too. And then started my company, Rey Benasfre Photography in North Carolina. Shot my first, I think, 2 weddings in like early 2018, and then yeah, since then, I mean, that's kind of like where I started taking it. I mean, more seriously. Let's see. Sorry, I just had a brain fart. I just remember. So it was. I used to joke about it too because I got so involved with my business. You know how it is, just trying to build your business and everything, and with a full-time job, you're just doing it at every chance you can get during lunch hour, and so a lot of times when I should have been PTing, I mean, like most good Marines would do during their lunch hour, always going to the library or somewhere with Wi-Fi and just on my laptop, either editing or working on my business, and trying to grow that. So I think I spend more time doing that. And I would joke around, and sometimes I would even be in my office, like working on stuff, and I should be working on this, but I'm like editing. So, sorry for all my old master gunnery sergeants out there that are probably never gonna listen to this, just in case they do. Yeah, I wasn't really working, dude. I was
knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, I would joke around with people and say that, yeah, the Marines is it's my second job. It's my side gig, and I do this like more full time than anything. But yeah, I was just kind of just doing that. And I'm not gonna lie, like my performances in the service kind of suffered near the end. Like there's a reason why I didn't get past E7. Is because I just was at a point where I found what I wanted to do. I found my passion. This is what I'm going to do, like, for the rest of my life. And I'm going to focus on this because I retire in like a few years,
I was gonna say, from 1 minute to how many guys do we know once they got to like year 16, 17, they were on short timers. They were just counting till they hit 20, and they were dropping their papers. They were like, I'm not interested in going. I'm not interested in a first sergeant. I'm not interested in,
yes.
I'm a senior NCO. I made gunnery.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was kind of in that same boat. I was, getting ready to become an NCO, and I was just like, look, I've been gone more than I've been here. And I was just like,
Right.
the rule I gave myself was if I didn't have nothing out there for me, I was going to stay in. And I saw that I had things out there available to me. And this was before I even thought photography was going to take over. I was going to go back to college, go finish my degree. Like that was the original plan why I joined in the first place. Got a great job at corporate America and was doing that. And then took on photography as a side hustle when I was a high school teacher, because life gave me a curveball. So I thought, well, maybe I'll do some teaching. And then within year 1, I was like side hustle. And then when I went official, that's when, my eyes got really open when I started treating it like a business in 2013 and realizing there's money to be made here. And I still not knowing what I was doing, but doing enough to really make a dent in my income. So it wasn't something like, oh, that's something he does inside. I was like, no, he makes legit money because he made more money than he did teaching. So he's doing something right. And I was still, even in the process of doing everything wrong, but like, so I remember that feeling, but it's just like, when you're building, and I tell anybody now that, because I think you could speak on it just as well, when you have a full-time job, but photography is a side hustle, how to build, what was your process and approach with building your company, and building yourself as a photographer while you're on active duty?
Well, one of the key things that I had to like learn or like to really like embrace was outsourcing,
Okay.
the editing, especially because I realized I was taking way too much time editing. Like I was spending my entire lunch breaks editing. I was taking like 3 months, maybe even longer to deliver a wedding, like it was not the kind of business I wanted to run. And I know like it's not the kind of business that, like Sal or Michael or were, like that wasn't the kind of business model they were teaching us on how to run and everything. And they would I remember, just Shutterfest, just in that, a lot of influential people there, and they're always like, outsource, outsource, outsource. I'm like, okay, let me give this a shot and see if this is really, going to give me my life back. And I did that, and it did. Like, it was a lot of money. Evolve like was not cheap, but like it was worth it for sure. To not have to, edit and be hands free, and also like, maybe some badass signature edits too. So, just to also have work that stood out in the area. Especially, I was in North Carolina, so like having work that stood out, um, over there, like people had never seen anything like that before, and so that made a huge difference in my business over there, and that really I think helped me as a full time or someone with a full time job, was being able to outsource all that stuff. Um, but I mean, and then using, but also like with outsourcing, hey Marvin, you still there? Just want
Yep,
to make
sir.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, like you're standing super still for a second. I
Oh,
thought
sorry.
you
No,
were-
I was literally like just in invested what you're saying because I literally relate to everything you're saying because
Yeah.
that I'm fully transparent. I still have the 9 to 5 full-time job simply because I was like, I did it so my wife could retire and go back to school and do, what she wanted to do with
Mhm.
everything. So, when I got recruited to go back to corporate America during COVID of all times, I was like, okay, well, and I was doing nothing at the time because everything was on standstill. So this was my thing back, but I obviously I managed it to where I correlate both worlds where I got, dedicate my time to the, the financial career, but then photography has never suffered in that. I still shoot at a high
Yeah.
level. I still shoot this, if not more weddings now than I did even when I first, was full-time as a photographer. So, I've always, never always, when people say the goal is to be a full-time photographer, and it's like, yeah, but what's the reasoning behind it? Because it's one thing to be full-time, but like you realize it was to pay for everything out of pocket, pay for your retirement, pay for your insurance and everything as a full-time photographer. That was the tough part. They don't talk about that part, versus when you have the 9 to 5 and you have those, insurance is paid for by your job. So the first couple of years when I was paying for insurance out of pocket, I was dropping a lot. And I was like, man, I'm going to make this much money. And it's like, nope, I got to send, almost 30K to insurance. It was like, because I want to have decent insurance and, and I want to still invest about 15,000 into my retirement every year. I got max out the IRA plus go into my mutual, plus, what I have in my investments and stuff like that. And, then save money because you want to get a, investment property. And like, so now I started planning and thinking about the future. But then when I got recruited by the financial company to come back, I was like, well, you know what? It might make things a little bit easier. And it honestly, it has, because weddings are still on the weekends. Every once in a while I get weekday weddings, but, weddings is still my primary bread and butter. And I still have that, adrenaline rush that I get from weddings. The only thing the only thing that's different now was that I feel it in my body now that I'm getting older. It's like, oh wait, this is what aging feels like. The knees and the hips, like, oh, I can't move. Like I did a double header this past week and I was like, oh, I felt all like Monday. I just felt human. A Saturday, Sunday wedding, woke up Monday and I was like, hey man, can we record on Tuesday? Cause I got such a late start that day. And I was just like, by the time I was cooking dinner. I was like, I am not going to be ready to do this podcast. I'm not even in the right headspace. So
I was feeling, I had the same thing. I was doing the same. I was feeling the same way the other day. I was like, dude, I'm dying. Like my body is just, but yeah, same. I love weddings just because, the adrenaline rush and it's a rush doing it until like the end of the night, the next day when you wake up and it's just like, my body. But yeah, the earlier what I was saying with the outsourcing, like one of the also important things to that is just making sure that time that you're getting back, for anybody out there that's listening and thinking about it, is make sure you're using that time that you're getting back, effectively, right? For your business. It's like, you'll have time now to go to the gym and like spend time with your family, but you also have to use that time for your business, and that's, the best way to do it.
And also, don't be afraid to take 10% back for yourself. Have that thing that you do that's separate from photography, separate from business, just that allows you to just take that deep breath and everything. And I mean, it's something you could something I want as I'm talking about this transitioning, because I know you can speak fully well on it. A lot of people kind of are in that limbo of when you are building and you work full time and you're building your career, your photography career, your business, etc. How did you overcome, I guess, the negative noise that's out there? Because obviously I'm trying to sugarcoat nicely without saying, cause you know what I mean? Like, it's like because you got to do it twofold. You got to do it as you're building a business. And my favorite, when you're getting out of the military, the things that people are saying to you when you're getting out because you decided, oh, I'm not going to stay in any longer, or I'm not going to go for that next promotion and tack on 2 or 3 more years, like I'm calling it a career. How did you navigate and not allow that to, I guess, negatively impact you, because it comes from so many directions? But I mean, how did you keep pushing for it? Like, how did you stay motivated? I hate using the word motivated, but yeah, how did you stay motivated and not listen to the quote unquote haters or
No,
the
like
naysayers? And
yeah,
you know,
I mean, man, I don't really know how else to say it, um, other than I just didn't give a fuck.
yep,
Like, like that
best,
really, like, I had a lot of people like that too, especially in the
yep,
service, getting
yep,
out, like, what were your plans? And you tell them your plans, like, I'm gonna do photography full time, and there's a look that they give you, like they don't want to say it, they don't want to be mean, but then there's a look that goes across your face, like, oh, really? Like, good luck with that, like they don't think it's gonna happen or it's true or whatever. Like, oh, you're not gonna go into you're not gonna become a contractor, civilian contractor, like,
yeah.
like that guy, like you're not gonna come
You're
back
about
and
to
do
make good
something
money. Blackwater just offered you a job. You're not going to take
yeah,
it,
but there's so
dumbass.
much money to be made in aerospace, and I'm like, yeah, I don't care, like I'm gonna do what I want to do, like, um and working for somebody else just wasn't one of those things I wanted to do. Um, but and then family was they're more supportive, I mean, or they weren't, I mean, my parents would give like a lot of like ideas of what they would like me to do, but I again, it just goes in one ear out the other. Probably the biggest one would probably be, of course, like my wife, like, in the beginning, like they just want that security, right? They want to make sure that they're going to be okay. And when you're like, I'm going to do this as a career, they're just like, are you sure? You're like, really? And I think it wasn't until like she started, because I remember in the very beginning, it was like like she saw, like, when I took Sal's classes and Michael's, and I had my first price list created, and it was like above the average in my area, right? Like, still wasn't high like enough, but it was
Yeah,
still more than most
above
photographers.
average. Yeah,
And then I remember her looking at the prices and be like, no one's gonna pay for that, and I'm like, no one's gonna buy this. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, we'll see, and of course, you start bringing in those checks,
yep.
like I think it was the first portrait session where I did IPS, and I wasn't, before IPS, I was making like maybe 75 to like 200 on a portrait session. And then
Hmm.
like, I did IPS, I tried it out, and I brought home like $800, and I sold 116 by 24 print. And I'm just like, check that out, and she's like, what? And then, and I would just have like, I would listen to podcasts, and I would have like, Sal on Creative Live, like playing like, like all over the house, just listening to
Yep.
Sal's voice, him talking about business. And she's kind of like, I like this guy, like he's smart. And, so she kind of started buying into it. Now she like, she knows what's possible with it. She's met all you guys,
Oh
Shutterfest
yeah.
and everything. She's fully in. But and that was the only opinion that I cared about was my wife's.
Absolutely. I mean, Tasha was the same way. Like she was honest. She goes, when you first started, I'm not gonna lie, I thought you sucked. I laugh about it, but it's like,
No.
but it's true, because you start somewhere. You don't just. I think 1% of our industry were generational talents, where they just, as soon as they
Uh-huh.
picked it up, they took it like fish to a water, and they were amazing from day one. But I
Oh
said, I'm
yeah.
glad I sucked and I had to learn, because it made me like, they say the difference between professional and amateur is an amateur will shoot till they get it right, a professional will shoot till they
Yeah.
never get it wrong. And that's what I've
Mm.
always pursued, that perfectionist in me and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I admittedly said I sucked when I first started. I looked at, we did a before and after, like, how it started and where it's at or whatever, and I showed those first engagement session where I was doing those cheesy poses with the sepia overlay and everything, and
Oh
then
man.
to now I'm doing these off-camera flash,
Yeah.
architecture. I'm using,
Storytelling.
exact storytelling, composition, lighting, posing. Shout out to Clay Souza for that one. No, but just all those things that, like, now what I'm known for and was allowed me to have a 10+ year career is like, now you just see the growth. So, yeah, I needed that. And it also, again, it pushed me, because again, and that just shows how much she loves me, because most women are like, yeah, I need you to hurry up and start getting better, because we got bills to pay. But again, my original pricing structure was, if I got a check for a wedding and it was more than what I got paid as a teacher, I thought I was doing something right. Again, I didn't know
Yeah.
I was broke until I got around rich photographers. They're like, yeah, dude, you're broke. You need to charge more money. And I'm like, I'm charging a lot of money because I'm thinking like, dude, I only make $1,000 a paycheck for teaching. I got $1,200. I got 200 more. Like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about? And not
Right.
realizing, man, I should have been getting 2-3K. And then, but as it grows and you hit that first time, the first wedding you do that $500 wedding, you're like, oh man, this is awesome. And then you then you think you get that first $1,000 wedding, you're like, oh, I made it. I got $1,000. And then you grow, and then before you know it, you're like, you just look back and go, dude, I'm really getting paid to just do what I love, and I'm getting paid some great money. Like, we made it, But the early days, those were the fun times, man. Get that big check to call.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I remember my first session that I ever tried to I did, and I publicly posted about it in a yard sale, local yard sale group. Like, hey, there was like these sunflower fields that just popped up near my house, and I was like, if anybody wants to come meet me at the sunflower fields, I'm charging like $15 to $20 a session, and I had like 10 people show up, and I think I made like almost like $200 at the time. And I remember just looking at it in my hands, I was like, oh my god, like I just made $200. I'm rich. I went home and like spent like the next 5 days editing.
Yep.
Like,
you got on kind of but hey, first sergeant, it's Gunny. Fuck you. just start calling, cussing people out or whatever. You said I couldn't make it. Let me show you. Like, I just remember the first time I got like my first ever high. At the time, it was my first ever high-end wedding. When you break down what I actually got paid versus how much work I did for it, that was I screwed myself on that one. But the first time I got a check for over $3,000 for ever shooting a wedding, it was when I was in contract negotiations for teaching. And I remember telling him, if you want me to sign next year, I need to get bumped up in my pay or whatever, because, at that point I was 4 years, teaching in service. I was supposed to be in a higher pay bracket, and they weren't going to move me again. And I was just like, dude, I just adopted my daughters. I got kids now. I got a family to think about, I needed, and it was like a difference of like $6,000. And I was like, and I just go, I remember reaching in my wallet and I pulled out the check and I said, let me show you something. I slid it. I said, I just made that from shooting a wedding this past weekend. I was like, so I can go out there and make more money than what I'm getting paid right now. You think I'm here for the money, whatever. I'm here because I want to teach, but if you're not going to pay me, I don't need to be here. I was like, I could do just fine as a photographer. And he just looks at me, he slid it back. He was like, not bad. He goes, good luck, like that, just in a very snarky way. And I was like, okay, like that. And then I didn't sign the contract, so everyone thought I was bluffing, but then I ended up not signing, so I'm not going back. And I just took that leap. I said, I'm taking a bet on myself, because at the time I was seeing checks that were more than what I was getting paid as a teacher. Now, granted, I was working my ass off for them, but still, it was, again, year one in business, I matched my income as a teacher. Year two, I beat the income. And that's when I was cocking up to say, hey, you need to give me more money. And then,
it makes it hard to go, want to go back. I mean,
I think the perfect balance is if you still want to work, or if you just need that security, because some people, it just, no matter how good they are, how much talent they have, I've seen that just security is so powerful. And, when you lose the quote unquote, the security of benefits, insurance, and things like that, and, it can get very mentally daunting, if that makes sense, because I remember like first getting out of the military, it was like, oh, we don't have TRICARE no more. We don't have this. We don't have these things that we grew accustomed to. And then it makes sense of why people stay in so long, because you get accustomed to the lifestyle, You don't feel well, go to the TMC real quick. Go to the clinic. And it was nothing. Just go, you don't feel good, go to the clinic, go be seen or whatever. Oh, they're gonna do an MRI on this. Okay, cool. And you get all that done in one day, and you don't even think about it. You don't think about insurance and co-pays or any of that.
Yeah.
And then you become
civilian friends, and I just be like, damn, like that's how much you guys pay for insurance? Like, I don't even know.
When you hear about people getting evicted, and you're like, I live on post, man. I don't know what eviction is. What's an eviction? Or even if you live on post, you get so much money to live, over your BAH. You're like, oh, these apartments only this much, and my BH is like more than that. Like, I played the trick. I was like, okay, if my BH is this much, I get an apartment that's less than that, and if I do it right, I can cover my utilities while I'm at it. And I'm a numbers guy, so I just, those things made sense to me. I didn't feel like a civilian until I got out, and then really, I'd say that first year I was still transitioning, but I think year 2 or 3 after I got it is when I started like really feeling. At that point, I was teaching, so that was like, okay, now I got it in 2009 is when my official
during recession time too.
Yeah, and I didn't think this is how bad it was. I didn't know we were going through a recession because I was so oblivious to it being in the military.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about the housing crisis. Yeah, I didn't know about the housing crisis. So when people are like, yeah, so and so lost their house, I'm like, how did they lose their house? Like, you don't know about what's going on? I'm like, no, I've never been in this situation. What are you talking about? And it was like, like, and then people are losing their jobs. I'm like, I didn't know there was a job crisis. I didn't know the house, like none of that. And again, it was like probably 2012 was when I realized. And at that point, I was already teaching, and we were getting ready to start a family. So I was like, oh man, apparently the world, it's been bad for everybody. But the first 3 years, which I thought were going to be very pivotal for me, because first thing they say is most guys get out, if they can't make it in a year, they come back in. So my
Yeah.
retention NCO was like, he's like, I look forward to getting your phone call. I'm like, I'm not calling you back, bro. And if I go back in, I'm going to go back to the Air Force. So there.
Yeah.
But no, I was, again, the transition. I mean, I built something. I had building blocks when I was in, because that's when I took my classes. But when I got out is when I really started like learning, like you, just taking classes whenever I could, playing Creative Live in the background, splitting Creative Live classes with friends, like sharing, like, hey, I got this class, can you trade, like bartering, because, man, them 175 classes were no joke. But I, back then it was like, that was college for us, that was like, man, I got my degree in Creative Live and YouTube.
Much.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Creative Live, YouTube, all the Facebook groups. I would learn a lot of great stuff from them too.
Yep. I mean, again, and I was coming up in the era, because like 2013 is when I officially started my business. And I mean, I remember first conference, it was like WPPI, and everybody there was like all rock stars. So it's like, that's when the photography rock star thing was really prevalent there in that era. And you're like, oh man, like you walking around wide eyed, like, oh crap, and they're like, people like, oh my God, that's so and so. And you're like, I don't know who that is, because I didn't know the industry. Again, I come up, like, I would be talking to someone like, do you know who that is? I'm like, no, who is? That's Jerry Guiones. I'm like, oh cool. And they're like, you don't know who that is? Like, sorry, I didn't,
That was like
I don't
me at imaging.
Like, yeah.
I only knew Michael. And then when I met Sal, like I didn't even know who the hell he was. Like he was just some dude on a trade show floor talking. And I was just like, who's this guy like behind me like talking loud? And then like I'm like listening to him, like he's talking about like sales to some other guy and his process, and I'm like, this guy seems pretty smart.
He might know what he's talking about.
Yeah, and then he asked me if this was my my first conference, and I was like, yeah, I've never been to one of these before. He's like, oh, you should check out Shutterfest. I'm like, what's that? He's like, it's probably the best conference.
And you didn't even know it was the guy.
It's the best conference, and it's cheaper than this one. It's you don't even have to pay that much. I'm like, really? Okay, I'll check it out. Yeah, and I didn't know it was him. Yep. I go home and I'm looking it up, Shutterfest, and then his face like pops up is like the first thing there. I'm like, oh, this guy.
This motherfucker trying to hustle me.
I've heard of him before, because I remember Sal or Michael had mentioned him like a couple times. Like, yeah, I learned, he learned from him and everything. So I was like, oh, that's the guy that Michael learned from, and now he wants me to go to Shutterfest.
It's like, for me, it was my first exposure to him was Creative Live, but again, I never I always listened to audio. I never watched the videos. I was always listening to audio because I have it playing in the background. So the only face I ever knew from the Creative Live world was Jasmine Star. So all the other people that would teach, or I would catch the Creative Live when they'd have the free showings, but I couldn't watch the videos because I would be at work. So I'd have a headphone in and I'd be listening. So you like, hey, this is Sal Sankata, and he'd just be teaching. He'd be talking business, whatever. So I knew the voice, but it was my intro to him was from Melanie Anderson, who I met. God. I met her at I threw that.
That's where Michael had his first workshop at first studio. I met her there too.
Yep. Now Melanie, so I met her by happy accident because I got a scholarship to go to a conference in Florida called Sync, and it was just like, hey, because one lady, she goes, I have a buddy pass. She was teaching there. She goes, I have a buddy pass, but my sister can't go, so instead of just giving it to someone random, tell me how going to Sync will help you out. And I was like, I don't know much about this conference, but I know this is something I want to do full time. And at that time it was 2015. And I just told my story. I was like, I'm a new dad, this and that and everything. I'm just kind of wrote my story out. And it was Joy Verse. She was like, I love your story. Be my guest at Sync. So it was like a free trip to Sync to Florida. So I went there and it was all portraits and sports. So I was like, well, I can do the portrait stuff. I don't know nothing about the sports because I don't do volume or any of that stuff. But I was doing working senior portraits or whatever, and I was getting better at doing portrait work. And then that's when I met Melanie, and she was like, "You should come to Shutterfest." And I'm like, "What's that?" And she was like, "It's a conference in St. Louis." And I was like, "All right, I think I'll check it out." She's like, "Yeah, I'm going to teach there. You should come and whatever." And I introduced you to a lot of people. So when I got there, I didn't know Sal yet. I heard the name, but I didn't really put two and two together who he was. I missed opening ceremony because I landed the night before. And then I went to sleep, and I was staying at the hotel off site. So I was sleeping, And the guy that I was rooming with goes, "Hey man, you coming?" I was like, "No man, I'm tired. I'll catch you when class starts." And I was like, he was like, "Oh, you're
Yeah.
gonna miss opening ceremony?" And I was like, "Dude, ain't nothing gonna happen special there." And that's when I would have met him there and all that stuff. So the first time I actually met him, we were sitting on the stoop, and it was the day one. We just got done doing a shoot that night, and we were just sitting on the big stairwell at the Grand Hall, and we were just drinking beers and shooting the shit. And then that's when he walked up, and I just remember handing him a beer. He took a sip. He said, "Hey, you guys having fun? You guys shooting?" I showed him back the camera. He was like, "Oh, you gave me a couple of pieces of advice, whatever." And I didn't get it. And
Yeah.
when he walked away, somebody goes, "Yo, man, you know that was Sal Sincata." And I remember just taking a sip, going, "Cool." Like I just no sold it. And then then in my head, I'm like, "Wait, that's the guy that runs this entire conference." And I just had the opportunity to pick his brain. I just literally like, "Oh no!" And then when I got my next exposure with him, then I was like, "Oh wait, he's like holding lights for me and shit." And I'm trying to get the shot and everything, and I'm like all nervous because everyone's looking at me, and I'm in that first time in the hot seat, and it was like, it was just incredible. But I was like, this is fun. And then I was like, the fact that he was like there on the ground with me, and I was like, that's what resonated with me. But it was like, I seen the same thing with you when you were teaching, because people were like, "Oh my god, how do I make these?" And you're like patient with people and really teaching and pouring into them. It's like that's I think one thing that everybody loved out of you as an instructor was they learned the building blocks to take those epic images that they want to take and stand out amongst their peers.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the one thing I definitely loved about, like, especially Shutterfest, and what I've learned from, like, Sal and all the other instructors there, is just being involved with the community, and and getting down and dirty with them and taking pictures.
So
Um,
outside of Sal and Michael, who else have been like some of your big influences?
ooh, uh, Pi Jerza, Woodland and Jerza. They're actually, I used to work for them a little bit when I first moved back to California.
Mm-hmm.
And let's learned a lot from their classes there. I was I think in their online, I can't remember what it's called, but I was part of their program for a while.
Oh, SRL Lounge. No, it's still going. I can't hear you now. Okay, now I got you.
Yeah, I'm in my car, so I guess I was hooked up to the Bluetooth in the car, but
Okay.
my car like did this automatic shutdown.
Oh, you in a
Um,
Tesla, aren't you?
yeah.
Oh God.
I'm sorry, let me figure this.
I gotta make fun. How did you go from being a Marine to driving a Tesla? You might as well get a minivan.
Oh no, yeah,
I
no,
would
this is like
respect
the
you if you
most.
had a minivan, man. Come on. It's a
I know this
Tesla.
is like the most NPC car in California. um, oh man, where's my Bluetooth? Can you hear me at least? I'm
I
not
can
using
hear
the
you.
car speaker, but I'll just go
Yeah.
off the phone.
Yeah.
Where were we at?
Your influences. So you said Pi Jersa.
Oh, Pi Jersey, yeah, yeah, his he's been an influence, like, like on like posing business, just photography and everything, sales. I use some of their sales methods too, and also Ben Hartley. So I was listening to his podcast a lot when I first started. And then, so what really resonated with me with him was just his approach to like how you treat your clients, and, love your clients, give a shit, being that kind of photographer that, just, more than just a photographer, right? So that really resonated with me. I took his course. I remember it was like booked 2.0 or something. It was like one of like the older courses.
Yeah.
It's probably evolved a lot more since then. And he was like, if you don't, make $1,000 your first month with this course, then you can, I'll refund it. So I took it. I took the challenge, and I took his course. He talked a lot about IPS and album sales. So then like that first wedding I shot, I just went ahead and did an IPS like album sale on them, in-person sale, and made $1,000 on that sale. And what, I was, just blown away by the time that it worked and everything. So that was a big influence also in the very beginning, which got me, more into like the IPS side of things. Um, I was in a group called IPS Mastermind. Dory Howell and Rachel Bohr, I think, were leading it at the time, and they were big influences on me, as well on IPS. See, for photography, like, of course we got Sal, Michael, Jerry Jonas is great. There was a There was a class I took. I can't remember this guy's name, but I took his class, and his posing methods have like stuck with me ever since. Um, Scott something?
Scott Robert Lim.
Yes. Scott Robert Lynn. Yes, I haven't seen him around like lately, but this was like an old creative
Oh
live
yeah,
class that I watched, and he taught like some posing for like
I remember that because, like I
females.
said, my foundation literally was like, okay, Scott Robert Lim, Jerry
Yes.
Quinones, Sal Sincata. Like
Um.
those are like my big three on Creative Live.
Roberto Valenzuela.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, posing, lighting, like that. I bought his books. Like those were big. Lindsay Adler, like those were like I had all I've had you've seen their books, right? Like
Oh yeah.
like I've had all their books see
I'd say what the shame is, I've been around Roberto numerous times, and I have yet to get my book signed by him. I've been yet to
no.
get his autograph. I've never like, it is nothing. I've never done it out of fear or anything. Like, I literally just
Yeah.
always say, I know I'm going to see him, and then I always say, oh, I forgot to grab my books and get him to
Oh
sign it.
man.
But I don't. It's like, but there is that part of me
Yeah,
that
I
feels
didn't
weird.
really.
Like, let me walk up to him with these 5 books. Hey, can I get your autograph? Like, just
I never thought
so
about that.
fanboy.
I should bring my if he's at Shutterfest next time. I should probably bring all my books.
Yeah, no, I'm actually thinking like, I'm
And
I'm either gonna bring it to WPPI or Shutterfest. I'm gonna get his signature for once. I'm finally
oh
gonna do
yeah,
it.
WPPI.
Yep.
I'll be at WPPI next year for the first time ever.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna be.
Yeah, I've never been.
I go there all the time. For me, it's become a more of like, I get to catch up with old friends, and I get to
Yeah.
help out Kai Marie with her class and everything, and just catch up with old times. And then last year probably was the best WPP I ever got to do, just because I had my daughter with me, and she finally got to
Oh,
see
that's awesome.
she finally got to
Yeah.
see what it was we did and how my career is as a photographer.
Oh, I love
She
that.
always got to see the back. She always got to see the back end of like, oh, Dad's going to a shoot, but she never saw like what it is we do and how much work goes behind it. She just
Yeah.
saw the cool pictures and the you know and
I'm
it
gonna
was really
copy
cool to
you.
feel like a rock star in front of my kid. So I was like, yeah. And she was
Yeah,
17, so
I'm gonna copy you and take my kids next year. Then my kid he should be 17 probably. Oh, no, he's 16. So yeah,
okay.
you're right. He should probably like it.
Yeah, and I did her senior portraits when I was in Vegas too. So like all her friends were like,
Oh
"Oh my
yeah.
God, you're so lucky."
That's awesome.
She was on there. She had her dress on, and she's on the Las Vegas Strip, and she just got the Las Vegas lights behind her. I'm like, and I'm sitting there like trying. And then Kyla was who's a senior photographer out there in Washington. She was like,
Yeah.
"Your daughter's cute. Can I do pictures with her tomorrow?" I was like, "Sure." So we went out to the desert and we did some stuff at an abandoned hotel. So we just, again, she got to experience life as a photography assistant, as a daughter, as a model, because she got to do a little bit of that, and just she had fun,
awesome.
and she got to just experience Vegas, and she got treated like a young adult, and she handled herself well. So I was very proud of her, and it was just a fun experience for her to get to see that. For me as a dad, like, you just saw that dad took pictures for a living, but there's a lot behind it. Like, your entire like young adult life and everything comes from this camera and what I do with it. So it was like